Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to have the age-old discussion of quantity versus quality. And if you've been watching me since I've been creating content, I'm obviously one of the people on the side of quality. And I think my journey, real quick backstory here, in in the on the side of quality started probably back in around 2021 or so. At that point, I had been in the ball python industry for like 2 years or so. I think I started breeding in 2019, and I was making some nice blue-eyed Lucies at that point. 2020 was my first, medium-sized year where I, produced a bunch of babies. I think maybe around 100 or so, and they were all pretty basic snakes. And that's when snakes were flying off the shelves, and they were, even basic snakes, even blue-eyed Lucies, I was selling for $400 or $500 a piece on a regular basis. But it was a lot of work. Um, so that was 2021, and that's when I thought to myself, wait a second, if somebody like Ozzy, and I was watching videos of him at his house, at his facility, and saw the size of his collection versus the size of some of the bigger scale breeders' collections, and I was like, wait a second, if I can make the same amount of money with less snakes, less work, why wouldn't I do it? Why would I keep breeding a Mojave to an Enchi, or just a blue-eyed Lucy to another blue-eyed Lucy? Why would I keep breeding a pied to a pied? Why would I keep breeding a pied to a Mojave and just making het pieds that are Mojave? Why wouldn't I, instead of having 100 snakes, have 20 snakes and have a nice pied het clown? And again, this is 2021, so the genetics were completely different. That was 3 years ago. Things have changed a lot in 3 years in terms of what people have in their racks and what the prices are specifically. But back then, when I bought that Super OD yellow belly inchy leopard fire pied male from Aussie for $7,500, he like had some really nice clutches that year. They were very rare snakes, obviously top dollar for those snakes at that time, but nobody else had that snake. It significantly upgraded my collection, and it allowed me to infuse a bunch more genes into my pied projects. So that's what I started doing at that point. So that's 2021. I, basically sold all the females I bred that year that were just codoms and no recessives. I was very codom heavy at that point. I think I only had like one clown clutch that year, maybe one pied clutch. Everything else I produced was codoms. And that was probably the biggest change in my collection, and I keep kind of redoing that every year or so. And it's kind of the philosophy I've adopted that's allowed me to actually continue to make money year over year on this, and to make more money year over year in this. Obviously, I started off just like all of you are starting off, where you're buying some simple snakes. You're not buying anything that's super crazy. This female, she's an OD pinstripe het ultramel. She's probably more one. She actually purchased her this year, to be honest, because I wanted more ultramel stuff and a few different genes. She's in shed too, but she's not an expensive snake. You could probably get her for a couple $100s, and this is probably what most of you are starting off with. A snake like this, with maybe not a visual recessive, and that's okay. It's okay to start off with snakes like that. When you're first starting off, you don't know whether or not this is just going to be a hobby for you or a side gig, or if it's something you want to do full time. And even, me being 6 years into this, it's still not really a full-time gig for me. It's not producing enough. This hopefully is the year where it is, and then I'm, next year 100% sealed into this being my full-time job at that point. But the whole quality versus quantity thing is a discussion that I continue to see, a pitfall that I continue to see people fall into on a daily basis. And let's say you have, and this happened in the video today, Jeremiah. This is, basically the conversation we were having in the video from Tuesday morning. Um, there's a big difference if you decide, let's say I have $500 and that's all I can use right now to afford a snake. And you end up buying a, let's just say you get a good deal on a clown het pied, an adult female, something like that. I don't know exactly what prices are at this point, but we're just using this for reference. Let's just say you buy a clown het pied for $500. And let's say you get another $500 and you want to buy a pied het hypo, again, for example. And you keep gobbling up $500 snakes at each time you get $500 to the point where after you've spent $3,000, you have 6 snakes. So now you have 6 snakes and you're filling up 2 rows of your 70/30. Or you have a Vivarium Electronics rack, a Reptile Basics rack, and you're filling up basically a whole stack of that rack there. But there's somebody else who, and you're not always getting good deals on those $500 snakes. $500 is like, I consider that like a pet price, right? So you could be getting a good deal on a snake. Somebody on our Patreon yesterday actually got a really good deal on a clown pied for around $500, which was insane to me. Which is why I don't rely on auctions on Morph Market to actually sell anything, because I think a lot of the time you get screwed as the seller. You get fantastic deals as a buyer. I mean, I've bought snakes on there and got good deals, but I don't sell snakes on there. I don't rely on that because you get murdered when you're a seller. But let's say you're getting $500 snakes. You bought 6 of them, and a lot of them, some of them you got good, okay deals on, and some of them you kind of got, the pet buyer pricing. But there's somebody else who decided that, instead of me buying 6 $500 snakes, I'm going to buy 3 $1,000 snakes. And they got a male that's, has triple recessive potential. Let's say it's a clown pied Posset DG. Let's say he scored that for $1,000. Let's say he bought a clown pied female, a nice size one, for $1,000. And let's say he bought a clown Posset DG female, right? Maybe he even got another snake. A clown Posset DG is probably worth $500 at this point. So he went that route. He went to the route where he's potentially making triple recessives. Maybe even there's a couple codoms in there. And the person with 6 snakes had purchased, a nice blue-eyed Lucy and a clown het pied, maybe a pied het clown, and maybe a codom only snake. Let's say it's a Mojave Enchi yellow belly, het pied. The person in our Patreon actually had purchased a snake that was like a 3 or 4 gene het clown female. It was actually sent to her gravid and laid eggs in the snake bag, and so she decided to return it because the eggs all went bad and the snake was very underweight. She took that money and actually found the clown pied in the auction for the same price. So a couple gene het clown female versus a full-blown clown pied female for the same price. That's a good value. So the first snake, in my opinion, was a bad value, but they were the same price. So obviously you have to be a really good shopper, and that's a completely different topic. But what I'm trying to get to the point is here, if you're filling up your racks with a bunch of snakes that are bad values at the price that you're purchasing them at, if you have a rack full of $500 snakes, they're going to cost you more than having a rack full of $1,000 snakes, because you're going to have less $1,000 snakes. If those $3,000 snakes are male and 2 females, you're taking care of 3 snakes. You're only having 2 clutches to take care of, so like 12 babies. And you could even sprinkle in a cheap female or 2 into that breeding group, but let's just stick with 3 snakes for now. You're doing half as much work with the husbandry. you have to produce half as many feeders or buy half as many feeders. You take up half as much space in your snake racks. You're going to produce half as many babies, and they're probably, I would assume, going to sell for probably twice as much. If you think about that and do all that math in your head, it doesn't make sense to keep buying the cheaper end snakes and to keep filling up your racks with the cheaper end snakes. So if you know you're going to keep spending money on snakes, you need to stop buying the really cheap end stuff, because all it's going to do is give you more work and your profits aren't going to go up. Now, I'm not saying that everything in your rack needs to be $1,000, but, and it's why I always tell people to buy high-end males at the very least, because if that male is able to breed to 3, 4, 5 females at a time, you're getting like super powerful genetics, and you're spreading it 6 times, 5 times, all the way across your collection. This male, do I keep showing, but he's been a superstar, so he's going to keep getting, this is Wolverine. He's a Super OD YB Fire Clown Pied. He was actually the most expensive snake I ever purchased. I purchased him last spring from Reptiles for Centuries. He got shipped here from South Africa. I spent $9,000 on him. Now, this snake isn't worth $9,000 anymore, but nobody else, there may be one of these produced anywhere else, and I bet you they're probably still around $5,000 or $6,000. But he is getting bred to basically everything. He is locked up with this female. He's locked up with these 2 females. He's locked up with this female down here. He has locked up to this female, this female, this female. So that's, if I'm doing my math right, 6 females to this point in time. And then once those females are done breeding, he's absolutely getting bred to other females, because he can make me pieds, he can make me clowns. I haven't had luck breeding this female to other snakes, so I think he's probably going to get bred to her. She's a Super Pastel NC DG Clown. I haven't had luck with her with any of my DG Clown males, so I might breed him to her. And that's a powerful male that's spreading clown to everything, it's spreading pied to everything, and it's spreading OD to everything. So at the very least, he's spreading 3 genes to everything he's bred to. The females don't all need to be knockouts. Half of the females he's being bred to right now aren't really crazy. This is just a clown het pied. She's a pastel pied het clown, and she's a pastel clown het pied. So these females right now you could probably get maybe $500 a piece. But he's going to make visual clowns, visual OD clowns with her that are het pied at the very least. He's making visual OD pied het clowns with her at the very least, and visual OD clown het pieds with her at the very least. And half of the babies from all of these females are going to be clown pieds. OD clown pieds, because he's super OD. So half of the babies, there's 18 eggs on average between these 3 females. And those females right now, let's just say you can get them for $500 a piece. So 9 eggs out of those 3 clutches should be OD clown pieds. Think about that. 9 eggs should be OD clown pieds at the minimum. And that doesn't include the yellow belly or the fire or the pastel. That's insane. That's an insane pairing. That produces a lot of high-end, nice snakes. Not only does that give me fantastic odds at being able to produce some really, if I make a bunch of ODYB clown pieds, not only does that give me the ability to pick and choose the snakes I keep from there. Obviously, it doesn't do me any good to keep any males. I won't keep any males because they can't be better than what the dad is. But any females, any OD clown pied females, any ODYB clown pied females, I get to keep them. And that still gives me fantastic odds of being able to sell a bunch of those nicer end snakes too. And guess what? It raises my floor in terms of what my production is. So while not everybody has the ability to buy a $5,000 male, I would assume at some point most of you have the ability to buy a $2,000 male or a $1,500 male or a $1,000 male instead of buying a $250 male. Save up a couple extra bucks to buy that one nicer snake. Having that one nicer snake can completely change the game for you. You won't be producing $100 pet quality snakes that are hard to sell that you practically have to give away. This is more than ever a quality over quantity industry. If the whole bubble that burst during COVID or after COVID proves anything to you, the market's crashing, the market's dying, ball pythons don't sell anymore. All of those people were the people producing shit animals. And I hate talking about the snakes like they're shit, but when they're producing a bunch of pastel clowns and that's the best thing they're producing on a regular basis, nobody wants those. Nobody likes pastel clowns. Maybe a small handful of people. I don't prefer them. I don't think they look good at all when they age. If you have a bunch of other genes mixed in with them, sure, but not pastel clowns. It's definitely a little harder to sell snakes right now than it was 2 years ago, but I'm still selling snakes. I don't have a lot of snakes in my racks. I have this one clutch, two clutches at this point, but three of these snakes aren't even up for sale yet because I'm trying to prove out, waiting until I can test for MJ. This male I just listed. This one's not even up for sale yet because I was waiting to list it with one of the lightning pied females. This female isn't listed because I'm going to list her with one of the lightning pied males. And these two are listed. So I only have 3 of these snakes listed right now that haven't sold yet. And plus a bunch of females I just listed. And they're selling fine. I have people lined up to buy lightning pieds. Those are $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 snakes. Lined up to buy them. So, when you're a little more selective with what you're purchasing and what you're breeding, and you're not just overproducing, which is what got us into this predicament that we're in, then you're not hurting. And this is something that I've been preaching forever. When I first got into this in 2019, there were well under 10,000 snakes on Morph Market. And that number has just bloated significantly to the point where, there aren't enough people buying snakes to flush down that number, because it's over 30,000 now. I believe it was over 40,000 at some point last year. That's a lot of snakes to be available. That number doesn't get pushed down very fast. There aren't that many people in the reptile industry. There are, but not that many to move 40,000 down while people are still producing snakes. And this is something I've been saying for years. People aren't catching on to it. I think they finally are now when they aren't able to sell their snakes and the prices are going through the floor, through the floor to the basement. And that's where we're at. So if you're looking at buying snakes and you have a certain budget, let's say it's $1,000, your goal shouldn't be to buy 3 snakes for $1,000. Your goal should be to buy 1 snake for $1,000. Figure out exactly what you want to do, what you want to breed, and buy the one best snake for the price that you can get in that project. If it's clown pied, do your finest research figuring out what the best animal you can buy in the clown pied project is for $1,000. Your goal should not be to buy a clown posset pied, a pied posset clown, and just a plain pied clown male. That's not what your goal should be. Your goal should be for a combined $1,000. Your goal should be to find that one snake, whether it's a male or a female, at $1,000 in your price range that ticks off as many boxes as it can to help build your collection up. So when I talk about quality versus quantity, that's what I mean. You're better off having If you have $3,000, you're better buying $3,000 snakes than six $500 snakes. Quantity isn't better than quality. You want higher quality, smaller quantity.